Hello and welcome to Narayana IAS. I am Pratik, your faculty for Daily News Analysis. Now students, in this session we are going to understand 5 most important topics from the Hindu and the Indian Express. So let's have a quick brief of the topics that we shall be discussing in today's session. The first article is taken from Hindu page number 6. Now as India aims to be a $30 trillion economy, what are the challenges that India might face in order to achieve this number is what we are going to discuss. The second article is taken from Indian Express page number 16. Now, given that the turmoil in Middle East has intensified, we are going to understand how this turmoil would affect India and what India can do in order to mediate peace between the warring parties. The third article is taken from Hindu page number 1. Now, in this article, we are going to understand what do we mean by money laundering and the Money Laundering Act and the provisions of the Act. The fourth article is taken from Indian Express page number 23. Now, in this article, we are going to understand antitrust complaint. Why? Because an Indian startup has filed antitrust complaint before the Competition Commission of India against company Google. The fifth article is taken from Hindu page number 10. Now, in this article, we are going to understand the Wakf Act and the importance of it. And finally, we are going to discuss few practice questions so that you understand the type of questions UPSC will ask in the examination. So students, let's get started. Students, the title of the first topic is Powering Up to Get to the 30 Trillion Economy Point. So, in this article, we'll try to understand the challenges that the Indian economy might face to reach this figure of $30 trillion economy and the solutions to it. You can map this under GS paper 3. Now let's go through a previous question asked in the year 2019. Despite the consistent experience of high growth, India still goes with the lowest indicators of human development, be it education, health, etc. Examine the issues that make balanced and inclusive development elusive. This is question. Now let us try to understand the context. The context is that India has a potential to be a 30 trillion economy by 2047, and this is only possible through sustained economic growth. And this sustained economic growth is possible by adopting the liberal economic policies and the private sector participation, which means our practice or adoption should not be protectionist, it should be liberal. Now, the author of the article is trying to suggest that despite India's economy, which is seeing 7% plus growth, the policymaker should not be comfortable or complacent. The author is trying to draw the parallels with other countries where the other countries were in the similar position of India, but they fell in the middle income trap. So India, it's a caution for India that the story of India should not be the same as that of the other countries. And to reach this goal of 30 trillion economy, we have to leverage on the demographic dividend, we have to address the structural challenges, and we should avoid adopting protectionist measures. This is the context. Now let us try to understand the challenge that we are witnessing. The first one is the income inequality. Now, despite the economy of a country registering positive growth, there is high inequality in our country. For example, the Gini coefficient, which is a measure of income inequality. For example, 0 means perfect equality, 1 means perfect inequality. India's ranking or India's figure stands at 0.35, which means there is stark inequality in our country. Why? Because of the wealth concentration, which means very few Indians, they amass wealth of almost 50% of the population. For example, the top richest Indians, they own 40% of the country's wealth. And this disparity is further worsened by the fact that 10% richest Indians, they own 80%, more than 80% of the nation's wealth. This is the stark inequality, the first challenge that we are facing. The second is the structural issues. Now, when it comes to the people being dependent on agriculture, like 46% of Indians are dependent on the agriculture. But agriculture contributes only 18% of India's GDP. So 50% population contributing to agriculture, but agriculture is contributing to only 18% of the GDP. This leading to low productivity and underemployment. What is underemployment? Where the skills of people are not fully utilized. Then the female labor force participation in our country is also very, very poor. The middle income trap. If India fails to transition from low tech to high tech manufacturing sectors, then India will fall in this middle income trap. Now, unlike other successful economies, India has not fully utilized its labor surplus in low-end manufacturing sectors. Now, which are low-end manufacturing sectors? For example, garments, textile, basic electronics, and footwear. These are low-end manufacturing sectors. Now, these industries have the potential to employ large number of people. Now, unfortunately, we are not been able to leverage this low-end manufacturing sectors. This is the third challenge. The fourth is the protectionist tendencies and tariffs. Now, at times what India does is, in order to protect the domestic manufacturers, India imposes heavy import duty on the foreign goods. What happens is that by adopting such protectionist measures, we are actually avoiding the competition. And if there is no competition in the market, the economy will not sustain. That's the reason having competition is good for the economy, right? And also high tariffs on the imported goods will actually increase the price of that imported good in our country, right? That is another problem. The next is infrastructure and industrial competitiveness. Now, for any manufacturing sector or any business to be in profit, it is very important that the competitiveness, they should stand in the competitiveness of the world, right? So, the Indian states actually face high costs for power, logistics and financing. So, as they are spending a lot in power, logistics and financing, they are not able to generate profit. At the same time, strict regulations, right, they are actually preventing other new players from entering the business or entering the market. So, these are some of the challenges that the Indian economy is facing. So, what is the solutions or policy recommendations? First is promote low-skilled manufacturing, which means that in the low sector manufacturing units, we have to ensure that we impart skills so that more number of employment is generated, at the same time more profit. The second is leverage demographic dividend. Now, this is the demographic dividend indicates the number of people who fit in the working age population. So, in India, 950 million, that is 66% of Indians fall in the working age population, that is in between 15 to 64. So, this is a big advantage which India should leverage. The first solution. Second is enhance female labor force participation. How do you ensure female labor force participation? By imparting skills. You give skills to the women, you empower them. This is how you ensure that the labor force participation of female is on the rise or increasing. The third is adopt a cluster and industrial model. Now, create industrial clusters. Now, industrial clusters are such clusters wherein you get each and everything which is known as plug and play facilities, which means you do not need any additional setup. Everything is available at that place itself. So, it is very important to create such industrial clusters so that we attract the global manufacturers as well as the investment. At the same time, you also need to develop supporting ecosystems. Now, which are these supporting ecosystems? Health, education and entertainment, so that you can also attract workers as well as employers. The fourth, as I told you, you have to resist protectionism, which means you have to welcome the competition, right? you have to maintain open trade policies so that global manufacturers can be attracted. At the same time, you also need to invest in the research and development. Only through research and development, we can make a swift transition from low technology to high technology products, right? Then, ease of doing business. You had to undertake continuous reforms to simplify regulations, and you had to create business-friendly environment. And this can be possible only through minimum intervention of the government and focusing more on the governance. Focusing more on the governance, which means you have to attract the private players in the market. So, way forward. What is the way to move forward? The first one, leverage the private sector. You have to ensure that you collaborate with the private sectors so as to attract the private sector into your country, right? And this private sector will drive infrastructure development and innovation in our country. The second one is to address the social and economic inequalities. Just focusing on the $30 trillion economy is not going to be sufficient. What is important is that the growth of a country should be distributed, which means every sector, every section of the population should benefit of the economic growth. And that's the reason it is very important that we provide social safety nets or social safety to the vulnerable population such as SCs, the STs, the OBCs, or for that matter the transgenders, women, etc. Invest in education and skill development. Now, if we want to make a transition to the manufacturing sector or let's say high-end technological innovation, then this can be possible only through investing in education and skill development. We have to promote innovation and technology adoption, right? The next is focusing on sustainability and urbanization. Now, as more and more people are getting attracted towards the urban places, it is very important for the government to ensure that the urban places are safe, the environment is conducive so that people come to the urban centers and contribute to the economy. It should be a livable city, right? And then data. Understanding the importance of data is very, very important because only through data you understand if the policies enacted or policies framed by the government is actually making an impact or not. That's the reason focusing on data is very important. And then the Indian progress, the progress that we make should actually be benchmarked to the global standard. It's not that just we are progressing, we should be happy. We should also see what is the global standard and if we are meeting that norm. So, these are some of the steps the government of India has taken. For example, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. Through this Jan Dhan Yojana, we are trying to open the bank accounts for the people who live in the rural areas. Then, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Here we are focusing on skill development and vocational training. Then, Make in India. Now, in order to make India a global manufacturing hub, we have initiated this Make in India campaign wherein we are trying to create that infrastructure so that global manufacturers as well as investments can pour in our country, right? So, by adopting all these measures, we can ensure that India by 2047 reaches a $30 trillion economy. At the same time, it is very important that India should ensure that the growth is spread throughout the country and it is not confined to certain pockets of a country, right? I hope you understood the article. Students, the title of the next topic is A Widening War. Now, in this article, we'll try to understand the continuation of the conflict and how this conflict will affect India. And you can map this under GS paper. So, previous question was asked in the year 2019, how will I2U2 grouping transform India's position in global politics? Now, what is the context? The context is that the continuation of conflict in the region West Asia has a potential to escalate into a full-scale war, right? Now, the continuation of conflict between Israel and Iran is posing a big challenge to the political negotiation in the Middle East, right? Why? Because Iran and Israel are clashing against one another, right? Now, given the recent attack by Israel on Iran, killing some of the leaders of the proxies of Iran, there's a high chance that Iran might retaliate back, right? And this retaliation is only going to exacerbate or worsen the issue in West Asia, right? Despite the ongoing violence, there is no significant political outcome, right? So, this conflict is not only affecting Israel, it is also affecting Iran. The economies of both these countries is getting affected significantly. Okay, so let us try to understand how this conflict is going to impact India. The first is energy security, right? Now, India imports almost 60% of oil from the Middle East, right? Now, as the conflict escalates or would escalate in the future, the import will get affected in our country, which means the import bill should go up and there will be trade imbalance. This is first, energy security. The second one is economic impact. Now, because of the disturbance in the region, the trade routes that go from the Middle East would also get affected. Let me just show you the map. Now, this is the Middle East region. Here we have Red Sea, we have Persian Gulf, Mediterranean Sea, then Suez Canal. Now, if this region is in conflict, then the international ships that pass through this region will get disrupted, because of which there will be, or the economy of a country will be affected. So, this is how the economy of a country would get affected because of the rising conflict in the region. The third is the diaspora concerns. Around 11 million people of a country, they stay in the Middle East. So, if the problem or the violence escalates in the region, the livelihood and safety of the Indian diaspora will be a big issue to our country. Now, these people, they send remittance, which actually helps in the balance of payment. There can be also loss of remittance because of escalation of violence in the Middle East. The fourth is geopolitical implication. Now, India has good ties with each and every country in the Middle East. If the tension escalates, then India might be, or India will face challenges to navigate the complex relationship in the region. So, one, we need Israel. Why? For our national interest, for our economic growth. And then for the for India's dominance in the world, we would need the support of the Middle East or the Arab countries. For example, let's say permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. For that, we would need the support of the Arab states. So, here it is very important to balance the diplomacy and the national interest. So, this is how India might get affected because of the rising tension or rising challenges. So, what kind of role India can play to diffuse the tension? One, we can mediate or we can facilitate dialogue between the conflicting parties, right? For example, we have good relations with Israel, Iran and the Arab states. At the same time, India has never ever intervened in the internal affairs of the Middle Eastern countries, which is something that the Middle East countries also appreciate about India, right? So, one is we can act as a mediator. Second, we can collaborate with international organizations like the United Nations so that ceasefire can be brokered and peaceful negotiations can be promoted, right? So, again, working with the international bodies is very, very important. Next, back channel diplomacy, we can literally talk with the top nations or the developed nations or the powerful nations like United States, Russia and China. This is known as back channel diplomacy. The purpose is to de-escalate tensions, reduce the tensions and find some common ground for peace. Fourth, we should offer economic assistance to the regions that are affected because of violence. The point is, we have to focus on these socio-economic issues. Now, India's expertise in capacity building and infrastructure development can be valuable in the Middle Eastern region. So, way forward. One, in order to bring peace in the region, we have to strengthen regional alliances. Regional alliances need to be built in the region, which can focus on regional alliances who prioritize dialogue and cooperation over military confrontation. So there has to be regional alliance. Second, there has to be pressure from the developed countries or from the powerful countries who can exert democratic diplomatic pressure on the conflicting parties to end the hostilities. So any country that is trying to be aggressive, economic sanctions, arms sanctions and diplomatic isolation can be thought of to isolate the country if the country is trying to be too aggressive. For example, these are some of the initiatives that were launched to bring peace in the region. One is Abraham Accord. Now this Abraham Accord is very, very important. Why? Because this accord normalizes relation between Israel and the Arab nations. For example, UAE, Bahrain, Sudan and Morocco. These were the 4 Arab nations who had diplomatic engagement with Israel, which means they are normalizing relation with Israel, right? The second is I2U2, that is India, Israel, UAE and United States. Now these 4 countries collaborated in sectors like water, energy, technology and food security to find a solution to the problems in the Middle East. The next is India-Middle East Economic Corridor. This will connect India and the Middle East and Europe through railways, ports, digital infrastructure, which will boost trade and economic cooperation among all the countries. Oslo Accord. Now this was an agreement that was signed between Israel and Palestine to establish peace between these 2 countries, right? So these were some of the initiatives taken to bring peace in the region, and such initiatives need to be focused again. Then we have to understand, or we have to address the root cause of the problem. And root cause is the political grievances, the economic disparities, poverty and the human rights violations. So we have to underline, or we have to address these root causes. Then promoting inclusive dialogue. We have to talk to diverse stakeholders of the region, such as the civil society, the religious leaders and the persecuted or the vulnerable people. And most importantly, it is very important that the initiatives that are launched to bring peace are monitored and accountability is fixed, right? So only by adopting a comprehensive approach, we can find a solution to the problem that has unfolded, a new problem that has unfolded in the Middle East region. I hope you understood this article, students. Students, the title of the next topic is Prevention of Money Laundering Act, right? In this article, you understand about the money laundering and the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. You can map this under GS paper 3. So this was a previous year question. So please try to go through the question to try to understand the type of question that can be asked in the UPSC examination. The context is that the number of money laundering cases in our country is on the rise. For example, around 5,000 cases were registered under the PMLA, right? 1.39 lakh crore assets were seized under the PMLA law. This is the context. So you'll understand what is money laundering. What is money laundering? You know laundering, right? What is laundering? Wherein the dirty clothes are washed. Same here. When the black money is washed and it is shown as it has been earned through a legitimate source, this is known as money laundering. So the dirty money is being laundered. For example, let's say money is being earned through drug smuggling. But this money earned through drug smuggling is shown as if it has been achieved or earned through some legitimate business. This is known as money laundering. Simple. It is a criminal offense under this act, right? So the PMLA was enacted, right, as part of India's commitment to combating economic crime. So India has committed that India will fight against the economic crime. That's the reason India enacted PMLA, right? Now this convention is very, very important to show India's commitment to the United Nations Conventions Against Illicit Traffic in Narcotics, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1988. The other 3 not important to remember. This convention is very, very important. Now the PMLA is applicable to individuals, very, very important for your pre-examination, to individuals, companies, firms, partnerships, associations of persons or incorporations, agency, office or branch owned or controlled by the aforementioned entities, right? So all these things are covered under PMLA. Now, what is the definition of money laundering? Any activity involving the proceeds of crime, right, that conceals, hides its true nature, source, location, disposition, movements, rights with respect to ownership of property with knowledge or suspicion of its illegal origin, which means if you hide the money that has been obtained through illegal source, then it is classified under the definition of money laundering. The punishment is 7 years imprisonment along with fine. Now, the Enforcement Directorate is a specialized agency that investigates and prosecutes the money laundering cases. So, ED, Enforcement Directorate, is responsible. The ED is empowered to freeze and seize assets and bank account of individuals involved in money laundering. Who is responsible? The ED. So, the banks, financial institutions, intermediaries, they have to report suspicious transactions to the Financial Intelligence Unit. So, the banks have to, in case there is any suspicious transaction, the banks have to immediately inform the Financial Intelligence Unit. And the Act also allows for penalties and fines to be imposed on the companies, right? Now, what is ED? ED is a specialized law enforcement agency. It enforces, so it comes under the Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. Very, very important for your prelims. Then it is tasked with enforcing economic laws and combating financial crimes. Now, which is economic law? The Prevention of Money Laundering Act is an economic law. Then there are other economic laws as well, right? Now, the ED was established in 1956 as enforcement unit under the Department of Economic Affairs. Then in 1957, it was renamed as Enforcement Directorate. In 1960, the administrative control was transferred to the Department of Revenue under the Ministry of Finance, from Department of Economic Affairs to Department of Revenue. Very important point for your pre. Now, these are the laws, economic laws, that the Enforcement Directorate enforces. Simple. The headquarters is in New Delhi and there are 5 regional offices: Mumbai, Chennai, Chandigarh, Kolkata and Delhi. So, all these points are very, very important for your prelims. So, I hope you understood what is Prevention of Money Laundering Act, right? Students, the title of the next topic is why an Indian startup lobby has filed an antitrust complaint against Google. So, in this article, we'll try to understand about the Competition Commission of India and the self-preferencing mechanism. And you can map this under GS paper 2. A question asked in the year 16, what is quasi-judicial body? Explain with the help of concrete examples, right? Now, what is the context? An Indian startup with the name Alliance of Digital India Foundation has filed a complaint with the CCI against Google, which means they approached the Competition Commission of India to file a complaint against Google. Why? Because they accuse Google of practicing anti-competitive practices. It was involved in the anti-competitive practice. As a reason, they approached the Competition Commission of India. What is Competition Commission of India? It became operational in the year 2009. What it does is it enforces the Competition Act of 2002. So, what is the purpose of this CCI? The purpose is to promote and sustain competition. There has to be competition in the market. If there is no competition, the economy will come to a standstill. So, there has to be competition so that economy sustains. Now, CCI sustains or ensures that there is competition in the market. It protects the consumer market and ensures freedom of trade. Headquarters is in Delhi. Now, the startup has accused Google of self-preferencing its services over other similar offerings. Now, what is self-preferencing? This is a practice where the company prioritizes its products or services over those of competitors within its ecosystem or platform. For example, when you surf through the Amazon website, whenever you search for a product, the first product that appears is the Amazon product. So what Amazon is trying to do is, Amazon is trying to product their products over the products of their competitors. This is known as self-preferencing. For example, you want to buy a t-shirt or let's say a jeans pant. So when you search it in the search bar, the first product that appears is the Amazon product. So Amazon wants to push you to buy an Amazon product. This is known as self-preferencing. Now, in the year 2017, Google had lost a case in the European Union, which means these big companies like Google, Amazon, Apple, because of their dominance in the market, they are trying to promote their goods or their products over the products of the competitors. That's the reason the other players, the other small players are unable to compete against these big giants. And it is very important that there has to be competition in the market. So the Competition Commission of India has to ensure that there has to be a balance so that the small players also compete in the market, right? So this is self-preferencing. Now, India is drafting a new digital competition law. And this law will be influenced by the European regulation. Once this law comes into practice, the big companies like Google, Facebook and Amazon will have to change their tactics, which is actually good for the competition in the country. So in this article, it was important for you to understand about the self-preferencing and about the Competition Commission of India. I hope you understood the article. Students, the title of the next topic is, there is pressure from poor Muslim groups to amend Wakf Act. So in this article, we'll understand about the Wakf Act and you can map this under GS paper 2. Now, there's a previous question asked in the year 2020. Customs and traditions suppress reason leading to obscurantism. Obscurantism is opposition to human progress. Do you agree? This was a question, right? So, what is the context? The Union government is planning to amend the 1995 Wakf Board law. This is the context. What is Wakf Board? First, let's try to understand what is Wakf. Now, Wakf is a long-standing Islamic tradition. It is an Islamic tradition, involves permanent dedication of property. Now, for example, let's say I want to dedicate the property. Now, this dedication of property would be for religious, charitable or any holy purpose. So, I am dedicating my property for a religious or let's say a holy purpose. Now, this dedication of property consists of immovable assets like let's say land. And these properties are used for serving common good like supporting essential institutions such as mosque, school, orphanages and hospitals, right? This practice has been a cornerstone of Islamic society for centuries, and this practice has played a key role in advancing the education and social welfare of the people, right? So the point is, the property is dedicated for the advancement of the people. So this property will be used for schools, colleges, right? For the mosques, etc. Now, the Wakf Board is said to be the third largest landholder in India after railways and defense. Why? Because they hold 8 lakh acres of land across our country. And that's the reason, as they hold this huge, vast swath of land, proper management and utilization of these assets very, very important. Why? Proper management is essential so as to support education, social welfare and cultural heritage preservation. Now, in India, the governance of the Wakf properties is regulated by the Wakf Act. This act was framed for the first time in 1954. 1954 Act was replaced by 1995 and the 1995 Act was amended in the year 2013, right? Now, which are the types of Wakf Board? We have the Sunni Wakf Board and the Shia Wakf Board. Now, in each and every state, we have separate Wakf Board for Shia as well as Sunni, right? Now, these board, the Shia board as well as the Sunni board, they have jurisdiction over the Wakf properties located in their respective states. And these state-related bodies, they look after day-to-day affairs of the Waqf properties, like maintaining records, handling disputes, and ensuring compliance with the Islamic principles. And then there is Central Waqf Council. For example, for every state we have High Court, then we have Supreme Court. Same is the case with here. Central Workforce is the Supreme Court, right? It is the apex body that oversees and provides guidance to the state level work bodies, right? It provides policy guidance, overall policy guidance, training and support to the state work board. I hope you understood the difference between Central Work Council and the state bodies. As I told you, this act replaced the 1954 Act. So what are the provisions of the 1995 Wakf Act? 1. Tribunals will be established for resolving disputes. 1. Right? Second, now this Act of 1995, it mandates a regular survey, that there has to be regular survey for proper documentation. Only when there's regular survey, the documentations will be proper, and this can prevent encroachment. Now this was further amended in the year 2013, the 1995 Act, right? This was amended so as to ensure transparency and accountability, which means this 2013 Act mandated for strict auditing and financial reporting. At the same time, it gave more powers to the Central Work Council to oversee the state boards. The purpose is to ensure transparency, right? Now, these are the amendments which are proposed recently. Have not been passed, but it has been proposed. And what is it? The work board will require to undergo mandatory verification of all property claims, thereby ensuring transparency and preventing arbitrary designation of properties as work asset. Then there will be change in the composition of the Central Work Council. For example, the new bill is trying to incorporate or give seat to women in the Central Work Board composition. So students, I hope you understood the article. In this article, it is important to understand the Central Work Council and the state boards, right? Students, it's time to discuss few questions now. Question number 1. The question number 1 is, which of the following countries were the initial signatories of the Abraham Accord with Israel in 2020? We know what Abraham Accord stands for. It stands for the normalization of relations between Israel and the Arab countries. So initially, UAE and Bahrain were the ones who approached to the, or for that matter, Israel and these countries came together to normalize the relation. So option A is the correct answer. Next question, which of the following is the most appropriate example of self-preferencing by tech giants? Google's promotion of Google shopping over competitors in search results. Yes, this one seems to be correct, but let's read the other statements as well. Facebook's acquisition of Instagram? No. Microsoft's building of Internet Explorer with Windows? No. LinkedIn's use of user data to suggest job? No. The first one seems to be correct one. The next question. A waqf is a permanent dedication of property for religious, charitable or pious purposes and typically consists of immovable assets used to support public institutions like mosques and schools. Yes, correct. The Waqf Board is the largest landholder in India. No, it is the third largest after defense. The governance of Waqf properties is regulated by the Wakf Act of 1995. Very true. India separate Waqf Board for Shia and Sunni at the state level. Yes, this one is also correct, which means 1, 3 and 4. Option B is the correct answer for question number 3. Next, with reference to ED, it is a constitutional body. No, it is not a constitutional body. It operates under the Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. Yes. First, it was under Department of Economic Affairs. Now, Department of Revenue. ED officials are equivalent to police officers and can make arrests under the PMLA. No, they cannot make arrests. They can seize the property, but they cannot arrest. So, third statement is also incorrect. Option B seems to be the correct one. Next, with respect to PMLA. The act was enacted by India in order to comply with the United Nations Convention. Yes, this one is correct. Second, the act mandates banks and financial institutions to furnish to FIU information relating to all cash transactions. Yes. This one is also correct. We did discuss in our topic. The Act empowers the ED to freeze and seize assets and bank accounts of individuals involved in. Yes, all the statements seem to be correct. So option D is the correct answer for question number 5. Now, means practice question. Despite India's significant economic growth and aspirations to become a 30 trillion economy by 2047, the country faces challenges in achieving equitable growth and avoiding middle income trap. Discuss the obstacles, challenges, and potential strategies. So first, you have to highlight about the fact that India aims to be a $30 trillion economy. But then there is a disparity between the economic growth and the equitable development. This is what you have to mention in the introduction. Then in the body, you can highlight about the challenges or the obstacles to economic growth. For example, income inequality. You also need to mention data. That is, the top 1%, they own almost 40% wealth. Top 10%, more than 80%. Labor market issues, which means we are not able to maximize the labor productivity. Middle income trap risks. So if we do not transition from low technology to high technology country, and then protectionist policies. These are the obstacles to equitable growth. Then strategies, we have to enhance the manufacturing. That is, we have to highlight the importance of low skilled employment intensive manufacturing sectors like the footwear, right? Then garments, textiles, etc. Female workforce participation can be increased by empowering the women by imparting skills. Infrastructure development, we have to develop industrial clusters, right? Then regulatory reforms, we have to ensure that the government intervention is minimum and the focus is more on the governance. And then we have to ensure that the growth has to be inclusive, that it should reach each and every section of the society. And this is how you write the means answer. So I hope students you understand all the 5 topics that we have discussed in today's session. So students, I request you to be very, very particular with listening to our DNA videos. By going through 5 topics every day, over a period of time, you will be in a position where you will understand each and every topic from the newspaper. So make sure that you are listening to our DNA videos every day. So if you want us to continue with our DNA session, then please to like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS. Thank you so much.